The line, "My tit has Shakespeare shaking in his grave." Was he buried or was he eaten by witches? Nobody knows. Okay. Hi guys, welcome to a video, and in today's video I just wanted to talk about the film Jennifer's Body and why I believe that at its core it's a sapphic love story. I also just wanted to talk about my journey with this film because it has been one. It has been a journey. She got the midnight train going anywhere. So if you're not familiar with Jennifer's Body, it's about a demonically possessed high school girl who feasts on her male classmates and her best friend who strives to stop her. Now, this film is an interesting one because for the longest time I disliked it. I did. I just wrote it off as another cliche teen horror movie which cheaply objectified women to appeal to a wider, basic heteronormative audience. Yada yada yada. But upon rewatching this film recently and taking the time to deconstruct it, I now realise that I really misjudged this film, and it is in fact not only somewhat of a feminist masterpiece, but essentially a sapphic love story as well. That said, this film is very much a sapphic wolf in heteronormative sheep's clothing, which is why deconstructing it is important, because that's how you get to understand what this film is truly about. So, the clues that point to Jennifer's Body being a sapphic love story at its core are littered all throughout the film, some clues being more explicit than others. But let's get into it. Early on in the film, we see Needy looking at Jennifer with love hearts in her eyes and talking about how people find it hard to believe that a quote-unquote babe like Jennifer is friends with a dork such as herself. I think this line is important because it lets us know that Needy puts Jennifer up on a pedestal and also puts herself beneath her. This is just one of the many complexities and issues in their relationship that this film seeks to portray. The editing in this scene is also suggestive because the shots of Jennifer as a cheerleader are slowed down and reminiscent of the moment in a lot of films where the protagonist sees their crush and everything starts to go slow motion. This is done deliberately to let the audience know that the connection between them is a romantic one. Needy then says that sandbox love never dies. And this is important because the sandbox is where the two of them became connected through blood and were bonded for life. And their connection is a continuous focus throughout the film, despite the many issues that they face. But we'll come back to the sandbox in a bit. The girl behind Needy notes the way she's looking at Jennifer and says, "You're a total lesbian gay," which Needy dismisses and deflects with Jennifer is her best friend. And I think this line could easily be dismissed as nothing of importance if you're not really analysing this film. But in fact, this line and this moment is a key clue to what the entire film is really about, which is that Needy has a lesbian crush on Jennifer, which she's struggling to recognise and accept. We then have the locker scene where we see Needy being persuaded to hang out with Jennifer over her boyfriend Chip. Needy just seems powerless in Jennifer's presence and acts like a lovesick puppy at times. It's also interesting the way that Jennifer looks at Needy in this scene, because the way she takes her in is very suggestive, and it implies that Jennifer also has a level of attraction towards Needy. After this, we see Chip and Needy have a conversation where he points out that Needy always does whatever Jennifer says. Needy responds that they just have a lot in common, they like the same things, and that's why they're BFFs. But Chip points out that they don't have anything in common, which is true. I mean, they're both wildly different people. And this leads us to the question of why Needy chooses to hang out with Jennifer despite these differences. And I feel it's simply because she's infatuated with her. Perhaps there's also an element of Jennifer being the quote-unquote cool girl, but really their relationship goes way beyond just admiration. I also interpreted the scene where Jennifer shoves Needy a little too hard against the door as frustration out of Needy spending time with Chip, or just by Chip being there. And right after this, Jennifer accuses Chip of jealousy, to which he responds, "Stop kidnapping my girlfriend." In other words, stop taking my girlfriend away from me, which is often what Jennifer does. And Jennifer is very much the third person in that relationship, and the most important person to Needy Period. Moving on to Melody Lane. Here again, we see another example of Needy being completely infatuated with Jennifer. Jennifer holds her hand whilst they are watching Low Shoulder, and the shot very much focuses on the way that Needy is looking at Jennifer. But of course, Jennifer is too busy looking at Low Shoulder to notice. And we then see Needy's expression change to one of resentment or dislike, and she drops Jennifer's hand. So we can see how the both of them clearly harbour these resentments towards one another with the shoving and the dropping of the hand. But it's important to note that both of these moments happen when there's a romantic male love interest or potential love interest present. Instead of addressing their feelings, it seems that they just let it build up inside, and as a result, from time to time, it jumps out in a way which is observable by the audience. After the fire at Melody Lane, Needy and Jennifer are having a moment together, but they get interrupted by Nikolai. Nikolai is obviously predatory. He pushes an alcoholic drink into Jennifer's hand when she's clearly already vulnerable and invites the both of them into the van. As I say, Jennifer is clearly in a vulnerable state when she's being taken into the van, but Needy is unable to stop her. And the look that Jennifer gives Needy as the van door is being closed suggests that she's somewhat helpless. She doesn't really want to be there or really know what she's doing. And I was wondering if it was a mixture of compulsive heteronormativity and the alcohol which got her into that van, because later on she's also seen in the van with tears in her eyes. So she very clearly doesn't want to be there of her own accord, but she got into the van with Nikolai regardless of that. Of course, there is some very overt feminist commentary in this film through the character of Nikolai, the sacrifice, the boys that Jennifer consumes, and with the title of the film itself. The film reverses and rejects a lot of classic cliches and gender tropes that are often present in the male-dominated horror film genre. In Jennifer's Body, boys are victims instead of girls. None of the boys get Jennifer or manage to tame her. It's a girl who saves the day, and Jennifer's lack of virginity becomes a source of empowerment, not something which makes her a victim. The title itself, Jennifer's Body, could be seen as commentary on the way in which women are reduced to their bodies and, as a result, dehumanized. Really though, this is just the tip of the iceberg with how you could deconstruct this film through a feminist lens. But anyway, back to the relationship between Jennifer and Needy. The day after the sacrifice, we see Needy have a flashback to when her and Jennifer were children, sitting in the sandbox, which shows us the root of their connection through the sucking of the blood. This gives us a clearer picture as to why they're so connected and what Needy was talking about earlier when she said that sandbox love never dies. The flashback is also interesting because you can actually see a very similar dynamic between the two of them as children, which mirrors the one that they have as teenagers. You see a young Needy putting Jennifer up on a pedestal and a young Jennifer trying to put Needy down. Jennifer is also particularly bitchy to Needy in the next scene. When she mentions the word gaylords, I thought it was an interesting window into the casual homophobia that is embedded in Jennifer, which then of course bleeds into the internalized homophobia her and Needy have, and their inability to accept their romantic feelings for one another. I do very much think there's a connection there. So we then see both Needy being intimate with Chip and Jennifer seducing Colin before she eats him. And the film cuts back and forth between the two. What's interesting is that Jennifer is only with Colin because she wanted to mess with Needy. And whilst Needy is being intimate with Chip, she starts to think about Jennifer. So we can see that their intimacy with other people is still very much related to one another. Of course, this is obscured slightly by the fact that it's also tied into their blood connection and the horror elements of the film. But what's especially interesting in this scene is that as soon as she thinks of Jennifer, Needy suddenly starts to cry. And I very much interpreted this as Needy being upset that the intimacy she was having was not with Jennifer, and because, once again, she was not dealing with her true feelings. But as I say, this is obscured by the horror elements of the film, and therefore it's possible there's other interpretations, but the fact that all of this happened during intimate scenes is very much a deliberate choice either way. Then of course we have the very famous scene where Needy and Jennifer kiss. Jennifer is wearing Needy's shirt during this scene, which has obvious couple who share clothes connotations, and the whole scene is incredibly tender. It's probably one of the most intimate lesbian kisses in a film I've ever seen. What's interesting is that Needy reciprocates, but is also the one who breaks it off. And I think she breaks it off because she is overwhelmed by what is happening, but also because she's still struggling to accept that her feelings for Jennifer are romantic. As for Jennifer, she's very much possessed at this point, but she kisses Needy because she wants to kiss her, not because she wants to devour her. In fact, she's freshly devoured Colin in this scene, so she really has no desire for a fresh kill. This sets their borderline sexual interaction apart from the ones that Jennifer has with boys. In fact, throughout the film, all of the interactions that Jennifer and Needy have with male characters are either connected to feminist commentary, the supernatural, or take a backseat to their interactions with each other. After the kiss, Jennifer says that her and Needy can play girlfriend and boyfriend like they used to, which possibly indicates that when they were younger, they explored their attraction to one another within the confines of heteronormativity. The film also does this to an extent, and I'm not sure if the creators were aware of the parallels there, but I'm going to assume that they were. So Jennifer and Needy stop talking after that encounter, and Needy then breaks up with Chip because 1, Jennifer is her priority, and 2, she's scared for him. And once again, there's an intertwining between the lesbian elements and the horror elements in this film. Speaking of lesbian elements obscured by horror, there's also a moment towards the end of this film where Needy thinks that she sees Jennifer at the dance. And I felt like this was another one of those scenes which mimicked romantic cliche moments from other films. She's hoping to see her at the dance. Could that be her? And then the look of disappointment when the girl turns around and it isn't Jennifer. And once again, the cinematography and the editing is utilized in such a way as to suggest a romantic connection between the two. Lastly, near the ending of this film, there's a standoff between Jennifer and Needy. And here is where some of the other complexities of their relationship, such as jealousy and insecurity, come to the surface. But even though the two of them hash it out, their deeper romantic feelings are still not verbalized. After the death of Chip, we see Needy has 2 framed pictures by her bedside, one of her and Chip and one of her and Jennifer. This is obviously a visual clue that these are the 2 most important relationships in her life and that they are very much intertwined. There's never at any point in this film a scene which is allowed to just solely focus on Needy and Chip. Jennifer is consistently involved in their relationship. If she's not there physically, she's being talked about or thought about. Their relationship and their connection takes precedence over everything else in this film. But of course, the true magnitude of their obsession with each other is obscured by Jennifer seducing and eating men, Needy having a boyfriend. But honestly, I feel like the heteronormativity in this film is very much a red herring. Jennifer's body is very much solely about the relationship between Needy and Jennifer. Another visual clue about their connection is the necklaces that Needy and Jennifer wear. They both consistently wear the necklaces even after their argument, and when the necklace is thrown aside, it lets the audience know that their connection is broken. As a side note, I couldn't quite see it clearly enough, so I could be wrong, but it looks to me that Jennifer has a picture by her bedside of her and Needy in the sandbox, which is possibly a suggestion that she feels just as deeply for Needy as Needy feels for her. I think the audience is very much made aware of how Needy feels about Jennifer in this film, but not so much the other way around, which is why smaller clues like this give us more of an understanding about how Jennifer truly feels. Then of course, Needy attacks Jennifer in her bed, and I don't think this is a coincidence. Their positions during the fight are highly suggestive, and in some ways this scene is almost like a sex scene. Then we have Needy ripping off the necklace, essentially breaking her connection with Jennifer. Their fingertips lightly graze each other as Jennifer falls away, and then Needy lands on top of her and stabs her in the heart, thus ending their relationship and Jennifer's life. And I read this scene as Jennifer very much having her heart broken, both literally and metaphorically, because Needy wanted to end their relationship, but also because Jennifer ceased to have any power over Needy in that way. So from beginning to end, you can very much see how their relationship is heavily suggested to be a romantic one. Of course, I do recognise that there are other elements in this film which shape their relationship, particularly the horror elements and the complexities of female friendships, which can include jealousy, competition and resentment, all of which may lead people to other interpretations of this film. But to me, Jennifer's Body is overwhelmingly about two girls and their inability to be honest about their romantic feelings for one another. And that's what's interesting about this film, because on the surface, it looks like it's made to appeal to a heteronormative male audience. The cinematography, particularly the shots which lingered on certain female body parts, essentially mimic the male gaze. But beyond being a parody of a very male-dominated horror genre, the film has nothing to do with pleasing men. And the creators have said that this film is essentially about exploring the complexities of female relationships. But I do see, and I myself was guilty of this, why people would write this film off as a cheap cliche which objectifies women. Because most people watch films for surface level entertainment. Not everybody can be bothered to deconstruct what they're watching. So I do understand why this film was somewhat dragged through the dirt when it first came out. And I do feel like the creators could have maybe found better balance between parody and getting the core message of the film across to audiences. But that said, I feel like perhaps they may have had a very hard time pushing a film which overtly focused on the relationship between two females in such a male-dominated field. So from that perspective, I understand the smoke and mirrors, I do. I mean, if we're honest, I feel like Megan Fox playing a character who seduces men and eats them probably puts more people in seats than Megan Fox playing a character who explores the complexities and the dynamics of female relationships. So yes, I have a newfound appreciation for this film. I admit that I misjudged it. I did. And really, I think Jennifer's Body is an interesting production which has a lot to offer, both in terms of feminist commentary and sapphic romance. Okay guys, so let me know your thoughts on Jennifer's Body down in the comments section below. If you're a lesbian, if you're a female succubus, come and join the Sapphic Underground Club. Just come and join it. We don't care if you're a succubus. We do not judge powerful women. We welcome them with open arms. We do. Don't forget to subscribe for instant disappointment. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye.